Welcome back to At the Buzzer. I'm your host, Andrew Lobliner, joined alongside my co-hosts, Campbell Klein, Dean McCollum, and Tyler Fattel. Today, we're going to be reviewing the first half of the NBA season and talking about some teams and players that we think are pretty interesting. All right, we'll start off with Tyler here. What's the first thing you want to cover in today's episode?
Well, I feel like this is a good team to start it off with because I think it's kind of obvious for all of us. A team that I think is 100% going to improve or very likely to improve is going to be the Boston Celtics. They are sitting at the 4 seed, which honestly isn't bad, but they're only 2 games over 500. They're at 17. Sorry, they are at 19 and 17. So I honestly, they've been hurt a lot of the first half of the season. A lot of protocols. So honestly, if they can stay healthy and maybe make a trade for a player like Nikola Vucevic, Andre Drummond, Aaron Gordon, someone of that caliber, someone who can help them, I definitely think they're going to improve. And even if they just keep their current roster, if they stay healthy, I think they're going to improve. And I think they're going to end up as a top 4 seed. Maybe they can end up as a top 3 seed if something happens with either the Sixers, the Nets, or the Bucks. But right now, they're a team that I think is very, very likely to improve.
I think that for the Boston Celtics, a big reason why they're barely over 500 is because of Marcus Smart and how he's been out for the past 3 weeks. Not many people have really noticed, but Marcus Smart is definitely one of the contributing factors to them. They were like a few weeks ago, they were below 500. They're on a little winning streak, but Marcus Smart being out, definitely playing a big part here. Kemba Walker also not playing that well this season. He's had a few good games recently, coming back from that injury where he missed a bunch of the start of the season. So him, Marcus Smart, and also they have a big center hole at the center position. Daniel Tice, Tristan Thompson aren't really getting it done because they're not going to be, at the end of the day, they're not going to be able to guard Joel Embiid, who's playing like the best center in the NBA right now. So definitely, if they're going to need Marcus Smart back at least in order for them to get back to that contending spot where they should be. And because you can't really do anything, I don't think they're going to be able to get someone like Andre Drummond. They might be able to, but I don't think it's very likely that he ends up in Boston. Same with Vucevic. He's not going to end up in Boston. There's no way. But maybe they trade for a lower tier center, maybe someone like JaVale or Hassan Whiteside, something like that. But they do have a pretty big hole at center. So if they can replace that hole, try and either sign someone in free agency that's for whatever reason there, or try and trade for another big man, and Marcus Smart gets back and healthy, Kemba starts playing well, Jaylen Brown keeps doing what he's doing, Jason Tatum stays healthy, I think this is definitely a top three team in the Eastern Conference. It'll just be a matter of time on when they pick it up.
Yeah. The biggest, like I said before, the biggest injury has the biggest problem for the Sixers. The biggest problem for the Celtics has been injuries. With teams like the Sixers and like the Bucks, who haven't had very many injuries, it's been hard to keep up with them just because they aren't staying healthy. The Nets have just they're very talented, so they can really win a game kind of whenever they want. But you said I don't really agree that their biggest problem right now is the center position because they're not playing. I mean, obviously they played the Sixers once or twice, but other than that, they haven't been playing too many centers where they just being completely manhandled in the paint. So yeah, that's a problem, and I think they tried to solve it with Tristan Thompson, which obviously didn't work. But I think their main priority has to just be getting healthy and kind of also maybe improving the bench because they have a lot of young players on that bench. Peyton Pritchard has been one of their best players on the bench this year, and he's been playing really well. But other than that, they're young players like Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, Grant Williams hasn't been playing bad. Robert Williams hasn't been playing bad, but overall, they're just not getting much production overall. So they need to kind of just stay healthy and just really have some more consistency from their bench. But yeah, like you said, the center position is a problem. I just don't think it's the most lingering problem right now.
I mean, I'd argue that it definitely is because obviously injuries, like you have to be healthy as a team. That's a given. And injuries aren't really a problem if you're considering like a physical problem. Obviously, injuries are bad, and that's going to derail this team in the future if everyone doesn't get healthy. But Marcus Smart should be coming back in the next few weeks, and their biggest problem is definitely the center position, because at the end of the day, when you're in a playoff series versus someone like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons is healthy, which they didn't get to do last season because they played the Sixers in the first round. Ben Simmons didn't play the entire series, sorry. The Celtics aren't going to be able to contain him. So that's definitely going to be their biggest problem, because there's no way someone like Daniel Tice or Tristan Thompson is going to be able to stop one of the most powerful big men in the league in Joel Embiid. So I think the center position is definitely their biggest problem.
I never said that it's not a problem. Obviously, it's a problem, but in the first half of the season, it hasn't been their biggest problem, because they've only faced a dominant center like Joel Embiid, once or twice, and Andre Drummond, once or twice, and Vucevic once or twice. So other than that, really, sorry, Drew, and Mitchell Robinson, for your Knicks. But,
No, I was just saying, I don't know if really Andre Drummond's in the category of
I know, but he's a
dominant
big
centers.
center, and the Daniel Tice or Robert Williams is probably the Celtics' biggest center. So if we're categorizing those 7-footers as big centers, they haven't really faced very many of them that have really just destroyed them in the paint. So in the first half of the season, in my perspective, the center position hasn't been that bad for them, other than a couple of those games where they played Embiid and Vucevic, where they've played really well. But they just have to get healthy. And if they get healthy, I think they're 100% going to be a top 4 seed, potentially top 3 seed in the conference.
Right, but this team is barely over 500, and you're saying they barely played the top centers. So don't you think that's got to be a little bit of a problem if they're barely over 500 and they barely played any of the best centers?
Injuries are a bigger problem than the centers for them.
Obviously, that's true. Kemba Walker was out basically the entire first quarter of the season, and Marcus Smart's been out since 4 weeks ago.
Also, Jaylen Brown was out for 2 weeks for protocols, and Jason Tatum was out 3 weeks for protocols. So during those times when both of them were out, are we expecting them to win any games?
Well, I mean, they're one of the deepest teams in the NBA. You got to expect them to win games.
They are not one of the deepest teams in the NBA.
The Boston Celtics are not one of the deepest teams in the NBA?
No. Drew, you want to talk about this?
Their bench is horrific.
Obviously,
Romeo Langford, who averages 2 points per game, has been
The
getting
Knicks'
rotational
second
minutes
unit,
recently.
led by the 25th overall pick in the draft, I think was like a plus 35 against the Celtics bench when the Knicks played them earlier this season. The next bench is the Celtics bench is terrible. I'm telling you, they're really inexperienced.
They're young. They're young.
They got this undrafted guy, Javonte Green, playing 20 minutes a night. No offense to Payne Pritchard, he's still a rookie. All rookies,
Robert Williams has probably
struggle,
been their
so you
best
can't
bench
really
player in the first
you can't
half
really
of the season.
depend on a rookie. Robert Williams has been pretty good for them, I will admit, but
Grant Williams
not
hasn't
having
been bad
Marcus
either.
Smart really hurts, because now other guys have to step up. And one guy that I'm a little confused, Romeo Langford, doesn't even
He was
touch
a lottery pick.
He's a lottery pick and doesn't even touch the floor, which I don't know what's going on
which
there.
shows that their team is deep, because
It does show that their team is deep. They got guys
you
like
just said the
Carson
team wasn't
Edwards.
It doesn't necessarily
The
mean
team
their
might
team
be
is deep.
deep,
It just
but
means
if
that
I just said
it
the
just
team was-
doesn't mean
it's
it
just
just
not
means
working
that
out,
their
though.
It just means that their lottery pick
You
just
could be
hasn't worked
deep.
out.
You could be deep, but your players don't go together. I think Grant Williams is a really good bench player, really good rotational player, but he's not having a great season. And if you look at the other guys, you can make a case that they're deep, but if they're not winning, then how deep are they?
Yeah, I mean, with getting back healthy, getting Marcus Smart back, getting Jeff Teague back, they have Kemba Walker now, getting Peyton Pritchard back, Aaron Nesmith being healthy, their bench being healthy. I definitely think they could potentially be a deep team, but in this first half of the season, riddled with injuries, they were not a very deep team, and that showed against close games.
Right, but right before we move on to the next topic, obviously you're not going to be as deep of a team when a bunch of your players are injured, isn't that right?
Yeah, but your argument was that they were deep in the first half of their season.
My argument was I said that they were a deep team. I never said that they were the deepest team in the first half of the season.
But who's their backup power forward? Is it Grant Williams or is it?
Yeah, Grant Williams plays backup power forward, yeah.
Who's backup small forward? Is it Nesmith?
Aaron Nesmith, yeah, he plays some minutes. Javonte Green also.
See, what's confusing to me is they've had 2 lottery picks in the past 2 years in Romeo Langford and Aaron Nesmith, and neither of them basically have any important role on this team, which is really interesting to me because they're a contender. If they're not going to really use their lottery picks, just trade them away.
Right, but that isn't that a problem on their management system, because they
Danny
are a
Ainge-
team.
Danny
They are a
Ainge-
team.
Okay.
They are a team that's been known to be very good season out. Like the Boston Celtics are consistently at the top of the East, and they always use their picks because they traded with the Brooklyn Nets, and they got a plethora of picks, and they never even trade those picks. Like Romeo Langford didn't even play last year on the active roster, and like you mentioned, Aaron Nesmith, he doesn't really get that many minutes. So I mean, I
guess in that way they could be deep. But in the first half of the season, they were so injury prone that they were not deep whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And Danny Ainge did also say that he messed up a little bit with their roster.
Yeah, I think Danny Ainge definitely overplayed the amount of picks he had and didn't use them wisely when he could have traded for a better player at the time. But we're gonna move on now. I know Campbell has a team in mind that he would like to bring up.
Yeah, not only do I have a specific team in mind, it's sort of more of a group of teams. I was looking at the standings, and I noticed a lot of the teams that went deep into the playoffs last year haven't started the season out super hot. So we have the Lakers, who have been okay until Anthony Davis got injured. We have the Nuggets, who are, let me see, I think sitting around the 7 or 8 seed, 6 seed, and they've won 6 of their last 10, 4 in a row. We have the Heat, who started the season really slow, starting to pick it up. Some of that's due to Jimmy Butler having COVID. And then we have the Celtics, who, as we just talked about for 10 minutes, started the season a little bit slow. They're picking it up a little bit, but we all agree that they're going to improve. So for that group of teams, I'm expecting all of those teams to play better in the second half of the season than they did in the first half. Maybe not the Lakers with the Anthony Davis injury exception. But all of those teams have won the majority of their last 10 games, and they're looking to be hitting stride. And also, sort of in comparison to this, a lot of the teams that got knocked out of the bubble early are really thriving in this first half of the season. The Utah Jazz lost in the first round. The Philadelphia 76ers lost in the first round. The Phoenix Suns didn't play in the playoffs. Who's the 2 seed in the East right now? The Nets didn't play in the playoffs. Obviously, they had injuries, but it's more rest than some of the teams that went deep in the playoffs did. So I just think that's really interesting. And I was wondering, what do you guys think is going to happen with some of the teams at the top of the East and the top of the West that had time to rest, and some of the teams near the bottom or the middle that are still trying to get their legs back?
I'll start here with the Nuggets. Obviously, they played in the conference finals last year after upsetting the Clippers and then lost to the Lakers. But the Nuggets haven't been playing terrible basketball. Like, they're in the 6 seed, but they're only half a game back of the Trailblazers in the 5 seed, and 2.5 or 2 to 3 games behind the Clippers, who are in the 4 seed, and the Lakers in the 3 seed. They're like 3 to 4 games behind them. So it's not like it's that big of a margin, but what I've noticed with Nuggets basketball recently is that not only have they had a good amount of back-to-backs, but their defense recently has been awful. And they're supposed to be third best player in Michael Porter Jr., which was my pick for most improved player of the year, has had to be taken out of the game in late game scenarios. Their third best player has had to be taken out of the game in late game scenarios because he's not a good enough defender. So when you have to do that, and when Jokic, he's an okay defender, he probably needs to get better. Embiid's a better defender than him. Jamal Murray's an okay defender. Gary Harris and Will Barton. I think Gary Harris is a pretty good defender, if I'm to be right. He's a good on-ball defender. Will Barton's not terrible. So they have a lot of mediocre defenders. And in a league and on a team where you play a lot of very good teams, like in the Western Conference, you're the 6th seed right now, and you're 21-15. Like, it's really competitive. You have to make those important defensive stops, and they haven't been able to do that. And that is just in my eyes, just what is happening to them. I expect them to make the playoffs. I expect them to get the 4 to 6 seed because they're a really good team. They have a lot of talent, and they'll get it going at some point. And then going to the Heat, yeah, they're the 6th seed right now. Bam and Jimmy Butler have both missed a lot of time. Tyler Hero's been out for a pretty good amount of time. They're going to pick it up. They'll end up making the playoffs. They'll end up, in my eyes, also being a 4 to 6 seed because Jimmy Butler, as we saw in the bubble, is a very competitive player. He gives his all every night on the court, which could be a problem because there are going to be a lot of games going down the stretch going into the playoffs. And then Bam Adebayo, pretty good. Precious Achiuwa, he hasn't gotten very many minutes, but he's capitalized on those minutes he's got. He's been playing pretty well. And Duncan Robinson, to Andrew's surprise, or Andrew's delight, he's been playing he hasn't hasn't shot the ball quite as well as we did last year, but he's still a good shooter. He's still one of the premier shooters in the NBA. So they'll get it going at some point. They have a lot of good talent and good veteran talent too, like Andre Iguodala and Goran Dragic. So they'll get it going. I think they'll be fine. So yeah, those are two of the teams that I'll talk about here.
Yeah, Tyler. It's pretty funny. Well, obviously, I know that Duncan Robinson. He definitely holds himself to pretty high standards, but it's kind of funny saying that, like, he's not shooting his best and he's still shooting 40% from three. It's pretty funny to talk about just how good of a shooter he is. But just to talk about the Nuggets for a second, I think they're going to be fine. I think one of the reasons why they've lost some of their games is simply because they lost a ton of front court depth. No offense to Paul Millsap. He's old. He cannot be playing more than 30 minutes a night. They really miss Jeremy Grant, especially on the defensive end. Jeremy Grant, like, he would guard Kawhi, Paul George, LeBron. Like, he's guarding the best perimeter player, the best perimeter wing on the other team. And so they're missing that. Also, their backup center went from Mason Plumlee, who's actually had a very good season on the Detroit Pistons, to Isaiah Hartenstein, who wasn't even getting playing time last year. And that just goes to show that their lack of depth is definitely hurting them. But the Nuggets, they have a positive net rating, fifth in the league. So I'm not really worried about them. Also, they have Jokic, who can pretty much win them single-handedly, win them games. So I'm not too worried about the Nuggets. I think one of the reasons why the Heat had their slow start is probably because, obviously, the main reason is Jimmy Butler and his COVID situation. I saw that they're like 13-8 with Butler, and they're like something below 500 without him. So he's definitely the most important player to that team. And I think just because of that team, it's kind of all built around Jimmy in a way. And I'm not sure if Bam can be the number one, like, go-to option on a playoff team yet. And the Heat, they're getting back into it, though. As Campbell said, they are the 6th seed, and the East is very close. And if you're talking about some teams that are probably going to improve, I think the Miami Heat will definitely be one of those teams.
Yeah, going back to your guys' discussion on the Denver Nuggets, I'm not really too worried about them like most of you guys. I think that the Denver Nuggets, they have a bunch of experience. I mean, they're young guys. I mean, you can consider Jamal Murray and Jokic somewhat young, obviously, because they're still in their mid-20s, but they went to the Western Conference Finals. They know what it's like to play in the playoffs. I expect them to improve. It kind of sucks that Paul Millsap, he's regressing because that comes with age, and their guys off the bench aren't really stepping it up. Like Andrew mentioned, Isaiah Hartenstein barely getting PT on the Rockets last year, and then Bol hasn't really been anything for them. I mean, he said he was winning Rookie of the Year. I don't think that's happening, but that's besides the point. I think that what Tyler mentioned about their defense was interesting because, like he said, Michael Porter Jr. or was it Michael Porter Jr., Tyler? He was being pulled out of the game in late game scenarios. One of their best scorers, one of their best pure scores. Like if you need the team to get a bucket, you pass the ball to him. He had to be pulled out of the game for someone like Will Barton or Gary Harris. Two guys who are limited on that offensive end, two very above average defenders, but they can't really do much on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, that could be a late game problem. Jamal Murray's not very good at defense either. And so I just have to expect more for Jamal Murray, especially on the offensive side, because he hasn't been what he was in the bubble. Many people thought that including myself, many people thought he was going to be the same player he was coming out of the bubble. I know that's very high expectations, but still he was playing insane in the bubble. And teams like the Heat, they're the 6th seed in the East right now. And another team I want to mention really quickly, the Raptors, they're the 8th seed in the East right now. I expect teams like the Knicks to move into that like play-in position. I know, Andrew, you're shaking your head, but don't act like that's unrealistic right there, because I can't really see the Knicks finishing.
We'll get to the Knicks in a second.
Yeah, we'll get to the Knicks in a second, but Knicks are the 5 seed. They have a very tough second half of the year. And I can see a team like the Raptors because they have a lot more experience. They have a lot more firepower. Their roster is way better on paper. So I can see a team like them and the Heat comfortably moving into that position where they don't have to play in the playing game to get into the playoffs. So anyone else want to speak on these sort of teams that are sort of in a sticky situation?
Yeah, right before we go to the Knicks, I just want to talk about the Raptors real quick. Similar to the Celtics, they've not been healthy the first half of the season. Pascal Siakam has been out with protocols and injuries. Their coach, Nick Nurse, missed like the past, I don't even know how many games because out to protocols. Kyle Lowry has been out. Chris Boucher started the season off great and has just fallen off. Fred VanVleet's having a pretty good season. Their big problem is the center position. I think they should go after Andre Drummond personally, because I think they're definitely a contender if they can get that center position. They have everything else I think they need. They have a good defender in Kyle Lowry, Norman Powell. I mean, really their whole team are pretty good defenders. That's how they won the championship a couple of years ago, playing good defense. So they have the defense. They have some pure scorers like Fred VanVleet. They're a good team. OG Anunoby provides some explosiveness. So they're 17-19 right now going to the All-Star break. I expect them to move up. I expect them to probably overtake the Knicks and probably the Hornets too. So definitely I think they'll make the playoffs. I just really not sure where that's going to be, because you never know. They could go on a really, really long win streak and end up potentially being a 4 seed, or they could win I don't know. They could end the season with there's 72 games a season, right? So they could end the season with 40 to 50 wins, 40 wins, maybe 30 wins. I don't know. Somewhere around that, not 50, most likely. They already have 19 losses. Sorry about that. Could end up with about 40 wins that I could potentially see. So yeah, they're definitely a streaky team. So we'll see what they have in the second half of the season.
I think you might be forgetting that's a 72-game season, because they're at 17 wins right now. I'm not sure if they're going to get to 40.
They would have to go 23 and what? If they have
not impossible.
Let's say they go 43. Let's say they get 40.
So they have to go 20. They have to go 23 and
13. That means
pretty,
that they would have to win
doable,
23 games
that's definitely
and lose.
23 and 13 is doable,
13?
but they do have no bench. They have no bench, and
13
Siakam's not having a great season.
They could go 23 and 13
They
easily
could.
in my eyes.
They could.
Yeah.
Frankly, a lot of teams could. But what from the first half of the season makes you say? For me, it's only for me it's only the fact that they're well coached. Well,
yeah, they're a well-coached team. Nick Nurse has been in the Coach of the Year conversation so many times.
They
have
look
virtually the same roster as they did last season, except for their center position. That's why I'm saying that if they can go after potentially a player like Hassan Whiteside or Andre Drummond and get that big body in the middle that they need, I think they can be a contender. Right now, I don't know if they are, but I definitely think that they can be.
Yeah, definitely a team to keep around. We're gonna shift gears now to my favorite team in the NBA. The New York Knicks, currently sitting at 19 and 18, above 500 for the first time in a while.
Congratulations. Just want to put that out there before we go on. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cherish the moment.
Yeah, definitely got to cherish this moment, because there's definitely a chance the Knicks will end the season under 500. They have the second hardest schedule in the East remaining for the second half, fifth hardest in the NBA. So it's not looking too bright, to be quite honest. They open the season. I know they play the Bucks, Nets. I'm pretty sure back to back. So they could quickly fall below 500 again. And then they end the season with an extremely tough West Coast road trip where they pretty much play every team on the West Coast pretty much for about 7 or 8 straight games, including all the top teams. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough road for them. But I guess just to talk about I don't know, but I know you guys don't really believe this, but I truly believe that you can make the argument that Tom Thibodeau actually deserves Coach of the Year. And I think as of right now,
you can make the argument right now. They're 19 and 18 with one of the worst rosters in the NBA.
I know. I think I'd still have to give it to Quinn Snyder myself. But if the Utah Jazz go on a big losing streak, or if a player gets injured, I don't want that to happen. But I'm just saying, if they somehow fall off a little bit, I think that if the Knicks could keep a top 4 seed, then it'd be a pretty impressive. I don't think they're going to keep a top 4 seed. I think more realistically, the Knicks are a play-in team. But before we get to talking about playoffs, I'd just like to highlight another thing about the Knicks season. Julius Randle has been absurd this season. I know you guys don't watch the Knicks very much. They're not on national television, so you have no reason to either way. But last year, watching Julius Randle was, you wanted to turn the TV off and just go cry to sleep. It was terrible. But now it's like, I want to see Julius Randle play 40 minutes a night, which is pretty crazy. And then RJ Barrett is having a nice bounce back season. We got haters like Dean saying he's not going to be good, but hey, he's almost up to 17 points per game, 6 boards, shooting over 40% from three in his last 15 games. RJ's definitely been finding his stroke. And then we got the steal of the draft, no question, Emmanuel Quickly at
I'm
pick
sorry, I'm
number
gonna have to
25.
dispute that. I think it's Cassius Winston going to the Wizards. He's been playing 3 minutes per game. I'm gonna take him over Emmanuel Quickly any day. And Cassius Stanley, he's about to win the dunk contest, so don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, I think Obi will be able to give him a good run for his money. But anyways, back to Emmanuel Quickly. He probably already has the best floor to the NBA, and he's a rookie. He literally shoots the floater from like the 3-point line and pretty much switches it every time. He's also shooting 95% from the free throw line, which is pretty impressive for a rookie. I see you shaking your head. Yes, he is. You can go look up the stats.
It's so irrelevant. Like
That's not irrelevant.
Come on.
One of the best. I'm pretty sure he's top 5, top 3 in NBA free throw
has
percentage.
Emmanuel Quickly hit this
Yeah,
season?
like how
He
how
shot
much do you
over
think-
100 free throws this season, which is
how
a
much
good
do you
sample
really
size.
think
I
that
didn't
affects
he
how
actually
much
he gets to the
He
line
gets to
a
the free
lot.
throw line a lot.
He gets to
He
the
does.
line a lot.
He's
in the
really
Knicks
good at
game that
drawing
I've watched
fouls.
this season, he does get to the line a lot.
How
He's
many
good at
games do
drawing
you think
fouls.
Emmanuel Quickly is one for the Knicks at the free throw line?
Zero.
Just a question.
Zero.
Against the Kings, it wasn't just him, but he shot like 15 free throws because the Kings
Yeah,
just couldn't
but
guard him.
didn't you win by 21?
He won by 20.
Yeah, but that's 15 points right there. So
Okay, but I'm not saying he's
Six.
dropping from 95% to 0%. If he shot like, what's league average? If
league
someone-
average is probably like 85. Like
No,
No,
mid
it's not.
70s, mid
No, it's
70s,
not.
mid
It's like-
70s.
like
Okay,
low
Either
80s.
way,
Yeah.
someone like Emmanuel Quickly, someone like him, a guard, a small guard, they're not going to be shooting like 70s. So if he's shooting 85% from the line in that game, you're still winning that game. Like shooting 95.
No, but he does draw
That's
fouls.
true, but also
He does draw fouls, and he's good at making free throws. So that is definitely
Yeah,
something.
that's-
I
that's
do
a big
know what
part of his game.
95% from the free throw line means. So thank you for putting that into words. But
I'm not saying
I'm-
it's winning the Knicks games. I'm just saying it's something to highlight
Okay,
about
fair enough, fair enough.
a good part of his game. But yeah, the Knicks definitely a revelation. Did not expect this. Expected to be, fade for Cade, tank for whoever, but we're making a playoff push, which is nice. It's kind of happy. I like seeing Derrick Rose back on the Knicks. It didn't end too well the first time, and he's pretty determined to make the playoffs. He pretty much said that he only wanted to go to a team where he had at least a shot to make the playoffs. So he definitely believes in the Knicks roster. He wanted to get back with his good old buddy Taj Gibson and Tibbs. Back when they were in the Bulls together. But yeah, the Knicks have definitely been a nice, pleasant surprise, and we'll see if they can make the playoffs or not. Dean, I know you have some thoughts on where you think they'll end up at the end of the year.
Yeah, so before I talk about the Knicks record-wise, I'd just like to say some things about Andrew's claims about me on RJ hating. First of all, I was only hating on him his rookie year because he's a shooting guard shooting about 50% from the free throw line in his rookie year. And a lot of my hate was based off of all of his fantasy performances where he would consistently get negative points because he couldn't make a shot, to be quite frank. But I will give it to you. He's had a much improved season. I'll give that to you. I'm not hating on him anymore. You know that. And it's a shame that Obi Toppin, their 8th overall pick this year, hasn't been getting any playing time because Julius Randle's playing out of his mind. Because the Knicks are in a sticky situation where they drafted Obi Toppin to become the successor of Julius Randle because there were so many rumors flying in and out that the Knicks were going to try and trade Julius before the trade deadline. That's not going to happen. I'll tell you that right now. And so Obi Toppin really hasn't gotten an opportunity. Many of us, except Andrew, are making jokes about him being a bust because he is not playing like an 8th overall pick, although he's only averaging like 14 minutes a game. But Andrew, I have a question for you because you're a Knicks fan, so you'll understand. You sort of mentioned this. You sort of touched on this at the end of what you were saying, like tank for Cade or whatever. But how would you, since you're a Knicks fan, how do you feel? Because the Knicks, they're probably going to make the playoffs. Maybe they're going to make the plan, most likely. I'd say there's a pretty high chance.
I think there's a pretty good chance they end up as a 7 or 8 seed. Seeing how they were playing in the first half.
Exactly what I just said. I think there's a very high chance that they're a play-in team. And if they get into the playoffs, which there is a chance, if they get into the playoffs, how do you feel? Because they're probably not going to win a series in the playoffs. And then it's basically they just have like a pick right outside the lottery instead of maybe having a worse regular season and having a top 5 pick in a loaded draft class.
Yeah, I definitely understand. I'm seeing things like, of course, the one year you got the loaded draft class, the Knicks aren't in like the top 5 of the lottery, but at this point, I'd rather make the playoffs. And to be honest, I don't think they can win. I'm not sure that they will win a playoff series, but I think that they can win their play in, assuming they're a 7 to 8 team. The teams that are going to be around there, as of right now, it's Indiana, Chicago, Toronto, and Charlotte. I expect Toronto to move up. So Charlotte's definitely going to be there. Indiana's most likely going to be there. Chicago could be there. Atlanta's right on the cusp. The Wizards, I mean, they ended the first half not too bad. We'll see what happens there, but I expect the Knicks to be able to win at least one game, if not two, against those teams. But in terms of a playoff series, I just don't see. I mean, assuming they're a 7 or 8 seed, if they end up playing the 76ers, they have no chance. Mitchell Robinson got absolutely destroyed by Joel Embiid early in the first half of the season, and RJ Barrett just couldn't score on Ben Simmons. Against the Nets, the Knicks just can't keep up with the Nets scoring. So if they end up playing maybe the Bucks or the Celtics, maybe they take a game or two. They already blew out both teams this year, but in a 7-game series, they have no chance to win that. But I definitely thought about like, oh, the 1 year Cade's in the draft, like, they're not gonna get it. But also they do have the Mavericks pick, so maybe they can pool both of those. They can pool both of those picks together, and maybe try to trade up to get into like the top 5 or something, depending on where those picks fall. Because if the Mavericks or the Knicks are the 9 or 10 seed, it's still a lottery pick. So the balls could roll in their favor somehow, which they don't roll in the favor of the Knicks. So maybe I shouldn't even be jinxing that right now.
Except when they cheated their way out of the lottery.
Except when they what?
Isn't there like a huge conspiracy that Patrick Ewing, that pick was just like cheated by the Knicks?
Oh yeah,
the first pick. Isn't that like a huge conspiracy?
Yeah,
that was like the first lottery of all time. I don't know too much about that, but
I mean,
to answer your question, I guess I'm definitely more excited about the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that there's a pretty decent chance that the Knicks make the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed, or potentially, if they continue to play this well and a team like the Raptors, the Heat don't play well, maybe the 6 seed. Probably not. Pretty good chance that they won't, but I think it's definitely possible that they get the 7 or 8 seed. The thing that makes me hesitant about this is that the Knicks are the 5 seed right now at 19 and 18 going to the All-Star break. At the 11 seed is the Hawks at 16 and 20. They're like, how many games behind them? 3.5, 4. So like the East is just so compact. There are so many teams that are around 500 right now that it could so easily swing. And like, if a team goes on a quick streak, or a couple teams go on a quick streak, and then a couple of teams go on a losing streak, like there's definitely chances that it's the playoffs are completely different than what it looks like right now, because like Andrew just said in the chat, it's like a 3-game difference between the 5 seed and like the 10 or 11 seed. Like, and the Pacers might be getting Karis LeVert back soon. Like, if he can play well too, like they could potentially be a good team. The Hawks have our new coach. They got rid of their coach and they subbed him in with their assistant coach as an intern. Trae Young could be pissed off that he wasn't an all-star. He should be pissed off that he wasn't an all-star. If they can stay healthy, potentially make a trade for John Collins. I mean, they're not bad either. The Bulls, not much to say about the Bulls. Zach LaVine's just insane. Lauri Markkanen needs to get healthy and actually play. And Kobe White needs to step it up too. A team that I would like to go into in the East really quickly before we go back into the Western Conference is the Charlotte Hornets. They've been, they're below 500. They're 17 and 18, so they're basically at 500. But LaMelo Ball has been playing exceptional basketball. Gordon Hayward has been having one of the best seasons of his career. Terry Rozier has been playing pretty good basketball too. He's been playing pretty well lately. And then PJ Washington put up 40 in a couple of games ago. Miles Bridges is the high flyer we know him to be. And then Cody Zeller is just Cody Zeller, honestly. Just good old Cody Zeller. Oh, and Bismack Biyombo is also nice. So I'm gonna let you guys talk about the Hornets real quick.
Yeah, I'd like to give a quick personal shout out to Scary Terry, Terry Rozier, proud fantasy owner of him. Yeah, he's averaging like 20 points on like it may not be like 50-40, but I think it's like 50-44, something crazy like that from the field and from three. He's one of those guys that's like some of the shots he shoots, they don't look like they're gonna go in and they look like they're bad shots, but they just end up going in anyway. So he's such a fun player to watch. And obviously LaMelo Ball looks like if the season ended today, he'd be the rookie of the year pretty easily. He's
I think probably unanimously, honestly.
yeah, he's definitely outplayed the expectations. A lot of people were wondering like if he's really gonna care, like if he's gonna play defense. Not saying he's a good defender at all, but he definitely cares and tries. During my time watching Hornets games, I can see that he really wants to win. And so some of his passes, which everyone raved about, they definitely lived up to the hype. And another thing, the 3-point shooting, people didn't know, but he's shooting pretty well from three as of late. I always see him on Overtime, House of Highlights, ESPN. He's this year's Zion Williamson. So I mean, he's definitely getting all the hype, but it's definitely well deserved.
Yeah, I think that the Hornets, I've really enjoyed watching the Hornets mainly because of LaMelo Ball, but also because of one of their missing pieces, probably their best player last year, Devontae Graham. He's been out for a really long time, and he hasn't been that good this season. I mean, I had him on my fantasy team last year. Very, very,
I
very
doubt they
proud
bring him back
owner
in
of him.
free agency or trade him.
Right. Yeah, because he's a second-round pick, but he's been injured. I think he's sort of the odd man out between LaMelo. Obviously, they're obviously going to keep him, and Terry Rozier, who's been having an amazing season like Andrew just went over. But a bunch of their bench players have also been playing really, really well. Malik Monk, maybe not looking like the bust everyone thought he was. Miles Bridges, obviously really stepping it up in his new role. He's getting a lot more minutes this year than he did last year. PJ Washington looking like a great lottery pick from the Hornets last year. So everything's looking pretty up for them right now. When Devontae Graham comes back, I do expect them to win more games as well. He's going to be coming off the bench most likely because LaMelo, it looks like he's just established himself as the starting point guard for that team. So they're not even at full strength. And when they are, I expect them to definitely move up in the standings. So yeah, they're a really fun team to watch, and their commentators are definitely something else.
Yeah, their announcer is definitely very invested in the game. But another team I would like to quickly bring up is the San Antonio Spurs. They've been a surprise lately. They have missed a few games as of the last couple weeks, just finishing off the season because of COVID problems between their players. But they've been a pretty surprising team. A lot of people thought the West was going to be loaded this year, which it is. A ton of people just counted the Spurs out, and I guess Greg Popovich has kind of proven all the haters wrong, all the doubters. He's probably the best coach in the NBA. I think he's pretty.
Probably.
He's definitely the best coach in the NBA, and it pretty much shows. I mean, DeMar DeRozan is having a great season. I thought maybe he had a chance to be an All-Star. I'm not sure if he actually was going to get selected, but he's averaging 20 points, 5 boards, 7 assists. He's actually shooting threes this season, where last year he didn't even take a three. I'm pretty sure he's over 30%, which isn't bad, which means you at least got to look at him if he's at the 3-point line, whereas last year I think he took like one total three. But they've had a ton of young guys step up. Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl. They were playing the Knicks. They were playing the Knicks the other day. They got this guy, their pick from last year, Luka Samanic, or I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, but he is like a Walmart version of Kristaps Porzingis. He's like a 6'10", just he does not miss from three. He's automatic. So I think he can be a really good player if he can develop into something in the future. Also, Patty Mills. Every time I look up, Patty Mills is hitting like a crazy three. He just doesn't miss. So he's definitely a good vet for that team. And obviously, their best young player, I know this is one of Campbell's favorite players, DeJounte Murray. He's having the best season of his career. He's a really good two-way player, and I think that he could probably give Dame and Steph and Chris Paul a little run for their money on defense. But I think the Spurs definitely. They might not be the most exciting team to watch, but if they get in a playoff series against one of these top teams, I think they might be able to give them a run for their money.
Yeah, I definitely think I agree with you, Andrew, 100%. Your main point was that basically that all of their young players, excluding like DeMar and all those guys, are really stepping it up. Keldon Johnson, he didn't really look like he was much in his rookie year, didn't have much of a role on that team. They weren't very good last year. They obviously were invited to the bubble, but definitely did not deserve to be in the playoffs. But now all those guys, Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray really stepping it up. Rudy Gay was having an amazing start before he got injured. I don't know if he's still injured. I haven't really seen him play in a while. But Lonnie Walker, like you mentioned, and I think that the main key for this team is definitely their defense, because Greg Popovich, obviously one of the greatest coaches of all time, he's definitely known for his defense, and it shows when the Spurs are on defense. Like DeJounte Murray, like you mentioned, he's a great two-way player. Lonnie Walker, he's been improving his defense. Same with Keldon Johnson, DeMar DeRozan, all of those guys. So Greg Popovich really getting those guys in line and making sure they're playing on both ends of the floor, because at the end of the day, the Spurs always play like that. And I mean, since they're in San Antonio, they don't get much love, but they're playing really well right now. And I can definitely see them as a sleeper, maybe in the play-in.
Before, I'm guessing Campbell wants to talk about DeJounte Murray for a sec. Two other young players. One of them is relatively young. The other one's a rookie. But Derek White and Devin Vassell both haven't had too big of roles to start the season off. They've both been kind of injured. Or Derek White's been injured. I'm not too sure about Devin Vassell, but Devin Vassell hasn't been getting much playing time. Derek White has been hurt, but he does either start or comes off the bench as like a six-man when he does play. So those are definitely two other young players that they have been helping or will be helping them or will be helping them soon, hopefully, for them.
Yeah. On the topic of the Spurs, I feel like, well, first of all, I don't have the numbers for this. I have an idea, but I don't want to spread any false stat. But what I do know is the Spurs this season have the most 10 points per game scorers in their franchise since Tim Duncan got drafted in 97, which is pretty incredible. Obviously, that shows they're playing team basketball. And as you guys said, DeJounte Murray, I feel like he's other than DeMar DeRozan, I feel like he's really one of the centers of this team. I feel like he does a really good job of knowing when to shoot the ball, when to pass the ball. Obviously, Dean said he plays good defense. I just feel like he's really developed really good decision making with this team. And then another thing, one of the keys to the Spurs' success is they just don't turn the ball over. Like, they had their most turnovers of the year last night, I think, or maybe 2 nights ago. And it was like 15. It wasn't anything like egregious. Like, they just don't turn the ball over. They're definitely, I'm not sure, but I would be pretty confident in saying they turn the ball over the least of any team in the NBA. They just don't make mistakes. They don't let team get out in fast breaks. It's hard to beat a team when you can't get running. So yeah, that's one of the big strengths of the Spurs, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Spurs are. Oh, you want to say one last thing, Tyler?
Yeah, one last thing. Okay, we are kind of making them out to be like one of the best teams in the NBA because we're talking so many positive things about them. They're 18-14 at the 7 seed right now because the Western Conference is so loaded. That would probably be either the 4 or 5 seed in the East, just to put that into perspective. But they are playing good basketball, but they could potentially fall off a little bit, and maybe a team like the Mavericks or the Warriors could potentially catch up to them. I don't think they will, but I just want to put out there they are a good team, but I don't know. I don't know if they're as good as all the compliments we're making about them without giving any really negatives. But definitely think that the Mavericks can catch them.
Yeah, there's definitely I'm not sure if they can catch some of those top teams, but they're definitely going to be an interesting team to watch. Lastly, before we get to the shot clock segment for today's podcast, it's only right if we talk about the team with the best record in the NBA, the Utah Jazz. So far this season, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, their dynamic duo, their 2 All-Stars this year have been phenomenal in leading that team. Also, last year, Mike Conley had a down year, one of the worst years of his career, and he's come back, and it was just announced today that he's going to be an All-Star. He's going to replace Devin Booker, who was replacing Anthony Davis. So a double injury replacement, but still, he can still say that he was an All-Star. He's been having an incredible season. And Jordan Clarkson also, which I know Dean's going to want to talk about him for a little bit. He's probably unanimously the sixth man of the year at this point in the season. He's been averaging he's been averaging close to 20, right, Dean?
I believe 18. Yeah, 18.
Yeah. So that's pretty good for Jordan Clarkson. He has the ultimate green light. He takes a lot of bad shots, but they go in a lot of times, so it's pretty fun to watch. And they just got like contributors all over the floor. Like they have some of the best 3-and-D players in the league: Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal, Bojan Bogdanovic. Like those players, they all fit the scheme and they all play really well. Georges Niang is another one of them. Also, Derek Favors is looking like rookie Derek Favors back on the Utah Jazz. He's giving them great minutes. So just all around, Quinn Snyder has definitely done a great job, and the Jazz are definitely well deserving of the best record in the NBA.
Yeah.
Here you go.
I think that the Jazz, what's leading to most of their success is that everybody's improving on that team. Obviously, you got Donovan Mitchell. He's their focal point. He's their star. He's their franchise player. You could call him that. And he's obviously going to start keep improving. Drafted in 2017? Yeah, 2017, I believe. But you got Rudy Gobert, probably one of the front runners, if not the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. His third, by the way. Bojan Bogdanovic coming back from his injury. He's been a bit shaky as of late, but he is still contributing big minutes to their team, a lot of points. Jordan Clarkson, front runner for sixth man of the year. You have Joe Ingles, who's having a great year. Mike Conley, obviously, unexpected year. I didn't expect him to have a bounce back season like this at all. And then you got guys who I thought were like not even deserving of a role last season, like Royce O'Neal. He's playing great basketball this year. I thought he didn't even deserve an NBA contract last year. If you watched him in the bubble, he was pretty atrocious. But I mean, everyone's improving on the Jazz, and that's what's leading to their success. They're playing a lot. They're putting up a lot of points. They have the highest point differential in the NBA, and they're playing great defense. Quinn Snyder's a great defensive coach. Rudy Gobert, obviously, he's leading that defensive load. Derek Favors, great second center off the bench. So everything's going right for the Jazz. They're on a 2-game losing streak, but I expect them to keep the 1 seed because Lakers AD's out, and I think all the other teams are a little too far behind to catch up to them.
I mean, I don't think they'll be like no one will be able to catch him the whole second half. I mean, I definitely think it's going to be a competition. There's going to be a conversation for who's going to get the 1 seed at some point late in the season. I definitely think that the Jazz have a pretty good shot at it, being 27-9 right now and having the best record in the NBA. But they're just playing great team basketball, honestly. I mean, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert have really established himself as a good 1-2 combo. Like you guys were talking about, players like Bojan Bogdanovic, Mike Conley, and Jordan Clarkson have established himself as also 3 good NBA players. And Mike Conley got his first All-Star appearance this season after replacing Devin Booker, as we talked about a little bit there, which is good for him. He deserved it probably in his Grizzly days, so he gets it now. And then, honestly, they've just been playing pretty good basketball. I expect them to continue to be playing well. And you know what? Maybe a team like the Lakers or the Clippers or the Suns, if those 3 teams can get healthy, can potentially catch them. But right now, the Jazz are the best team in the NBA in my eyes. So,
and record-wise as well, obviously.
Oh, sorry. They're best team in the NBA record-wise, and they're playing like one of the best teams in the NBA, arguably the best team. So, definitely teams that can catch up to them, but right now, that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very interesting to see if they can make a deep run in the playoffs because, as we know, last year they blew a 3-1 lead in the first round. Obviously, they've improved, and they didn't have Bojan Bogdanovic in the bubble last year, so we'll see what can happen. I mean, if they put themselves in good position with an easy round 1 series, they could make a run, but we'll see how it plays out later on in the season. We're going to move on to the shot clock segment right now. So for today, the question is basically, a team to watch in the second half of the season, a team that our viewers should keep an eye on, whether it's for the good or for the bad. So we're going to start with Campbell for this shot clock segment. I'm just going to get the timer ready, Campbell. All right, 24 seconds on the clock, starting now.
All right, so a team to look out for, in my opinion, is the Dallas Mavericks. They started the season a little bit slow. I know Drew was happy about that because the Knicks have their draft pick this year, but I think they're going to really turn it around in the second half of the season as they were to end this half. I think they were 8-2 in their last 10 games, moving up in the standings. I think they're around the 9 seed right now, and I think I'm looking for them to finish somewhere 4 through 6, maybe even. So yeah.
Yeah, they're 8
Yeah.
seed right now. They're 18 and 16. So
Yeah, I don't really want them to do well, but I mean, when you have Luka Doncic on your team, there's only so many L's you can take. We're gonna move to Dean now. 24 seconds on the clock. Ready, begin.
So we briefly talked about this team earlier. I'm going to go with the Charlotte Hornets. They're not even at full strength, as I mentioned earlier. Devontae Graham, arguably their best player last year, isn't even playing. Everyone's stepping up on their team. Obviously, LaMelo Ball, undisputed rookie of the year. You got Cody Zeller being Cody Zeller. Miles Bridges, PJ Washington having an amazing sophomore season. Gordon Hayward looking like the max contract they signed him to. So everything's working well for the Hornets, and I expect them to have at least a play-in spot.
Yeah, everyone clowned the Hornets for that contract, but it's not looking too bad right now. We'll see what he can do the next 3 years, but at least this year it's looking like it paid off. All right, Tyler, you're up next. 24 seconds on the clock. Ready, begin.
So I'm going to go with the team that is sitting at the 10 seed right now at 500, 16 and 16. The Memphis Grizzlies. John Morant was out for 3 to 4 weeks with that ankle sprain. Brandon Clark has been hurt. Jaren Jackson was out the full first half of the season. They should be getting him back soon. So if this team can get healthy, I definitely think they can make a run into the play-in and potentially make the playoffs. Because remember, last year with a first-year John Morant and not that healthy of a team either, they almost got the 8 seed, ended up as a 9 seed, but I definitely think that they can end up in the playoffs if they continue to play well.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on, especially because they haven't even been that bad, and their second best player has been injured. So they're definitely a team to look after. Campbell's going to time me now, so I'm ready.
One more thing
when
to
you're ready,
add that I
Campbell.
didn't add really quickly. Jonas Valanciunas is playing the best basketball of his life right now. I mean, he's been playing like a potentially top 15 center. That sounds crazy. It sounds crazy.
It's better than 15 in my opinion.
Better than 15, yeah.
Okay, top 10 center, potentially. I don't know about that,
Maybe,
but,
yeah.
but he's been playing some good basketball. He's given the Grizz their second best option. And another player to keep your eye on. This I was talking about with him about I was talking about him with Dean because I wanted maybe to invest in his sports card. Desmond Bane. He's been shooting the ball very well recently. He doesn't get much playing time, but he's a very efficient scorer. So maybe he can potentially become a pretty good player for the Grizz.
Yeah, I didn't know when they extended the shot clock to 60 seconds, but regardless, we'll be moving on to Andrew. 24
The new
seconds.
NBA rule. You didn't hear about it? Get up to speed.
24 seconds on the clock, starting now.
All right, so the team I think everyone should be looking at is the Indiana Pacers. Tyler briefly touched on it. Karis LeVert might be coming back, and whether he's coming back or not, they're definitely a team to watch because they have lost 6 of their last 10 games. They lost a heartbreaker to the Knicks. They're not doing too well. Domantas Sabonis plays 45 minutes a night. Malcolm Brogdon plays 50 minutes a night, which, trust me, he plays 50 minutes a night. They still can't win a game, so they're definitely a team. They're only 2 games back of the 4 seed. East is very close, but they're definitely a team to watch because they have definitely not got to their expectations for the season.
To put that into perspective real quick, they are 2 to 3 games behind the 4-5 seed right now. They are in 10th place in the Eastern Conference. So that Eastern Conference can swing very, very quickly.
Yeah, it can definitely swing very quickly. It's just the Pacers are such an interesting team to watch because, Sabonis and Brogdon are, I'm pretty sure, both top 5 in the NBA minutes per game, and they still can't win, which probably means that their bench needs to be better. As Campbell's very familiar with this player, TJ McConnell has been a nice boost off the bench. He just had, I think it was 9 steals. 10 steals in the
double
NBA
off
game.
of steals.
9 in the first half. That is truly remarkable by TJ McConnell. He's definitely a very scrappy player.
How do you even do that?
Yeah, I
passing by
wasn't
the
watching
Cavs.
the game. I don't know what the Cavs were doing, but I have to assume they just handed it to him at the end of the half.
I mean, if you're going to get 10 steals against a team, it's probably going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I was watching the highlights, and most of them were like lob passes to Colin Sexton, and TJ McConnell was just using his footwork to get around them every time. I feel like every steal was on Colin Sexton. I don't know if that's true.
That's unacceptable by the Cavaliers. So, I'm a little bit mad.
Yes, the Cavaliers are one of the worst teams in the NBA for a reason. We didn't even talk about them. They're probably because of that reason, but yeah. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at AT Buzzer Podcast in the platform you're listening on today. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for next week's episode.